You just heard Devin read it so well, Psalm 105, where it tells us to praise the Lord and to make known what God has done. And that's what we're going to do this morning as we enter into the Thanksgiving week here. Make known what God has done. And we're going to do this through three powerful testimonies from members of our congregation. Three people at different stages of life with very different stories, but all revealing a God who is still at work in our world today. We know you are going to be blessed this morning through these testimonies. First, we're going to hear from Prakash, who is a college student at La Sierra University. Thank you, Prakash, for telling your story this morning.
How's everyone doing? Happy Sabbath. My name is Prakash Heramil, and I'm going to give you my testimony for why I'm so thankful about life. So, a year and 2 months ago, I was homeless, living in the back of my car, going to Drayson Center and taking showers because I couldn't afford a home. It was tough. Every single day, I was crying. I didn't know what to do. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and nothing was seeming to coming out. I felt like I was praying for nothing. And I would work 9 to 5. Sometimes I would work graveyard shifts, 2 in the morning all the way to 8 in the morning. And nothing was making sense. I felt like God was not helping me, and through these trials, recently getting kicked out, not knowing how to pay for my taxes and stuff like that, and all these mumbo jumbos. And I felt like my world was spiraling down. And then one day, my best friend, Crescencio, he calls me and he's just like, I feel like you need help. I feel like you need to be talking to. And I was just like, kinda, yeah, I don't want to put my burdens onto you, because I like doing my own things. And he told me, no, talk to me. I feel like God was speaking through him in order to let me open up and tell him my needs and what I needed. So I did. And he told me, Kosh, come live with us. And I started to cry, and I was like, thank you. So after work, I just packed up all my stuff in my car, and I moved it onto his house. And no longer was I homeless, no longer I couldn't take a shower, no longer I was going to spend cold nights in my car. I was going to live in his house. And now I'm still there, and I'm thankful. And I'd like to share that testimony with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Prakash, for telling that story, and a very special thank you to the Altamirano family, a family in our congregation who opened their doors to let him in. Our next story is going to be from Sharon. Perhaps no one in our congregation has experienced more loss this year than Sharon has, yet her story has found God in the midst of all of it, with many reasons to still be thankful. So thank you, Sharon, for sharing your story this morning.
Thank you, Pastor Trevin. Happy Sabbath to each one of you this morning. When Pastor Azure asked us to share what we have been thankful for over this past year, it was easy to answer. Not so easy to put in 5 minutes, but we'll try. We'll do our best. For those that may not know our journey, we've been through this past year. Let us briefly give you a timeline. In December of last year, we moved our dad down from Pendleton, Oregon to Loma Linda. In January, Arthur got some news that his job was changing. April 18, I lost my sister as a result of a car accident. July, I broke my foot, which I am still nursing. August 18, for you pet lovers, we lost our sissy kitty, who'd been in our home, beloved pet, for over 17 years. August 31st, I lost my daddy. And on September 30, Arthur left his employment with Adventist Risk Management after 29 years. Quite a year. And as some of you look at those the challenging years we've had, you might say, thankful doesn't really come into play when you think about what we've been through. But the reality is, as we look back the experiences that God has provided us through each of those events, we cannot help but think of anything else but thankful. In the past year, we have seen what we have kind of coined as God moments. Times, places, people entering our lives, moments that God has really shown that He is with us each step of the way. We want to share a couple of those with you this morning. Last fall, we as a family had decided that it was time to think about moving Daddy down. He was 91, getting more frail. And we planned, my cousin had a 22-foot trailer actually up in that area, so we knew we could take care of his personal belongings and get those on the trailer and take care of it. But what we didn't realize is once we got up there, he was much more frail than we anticipated. And as we sat through that process, we started to analyze, once we got there, his frailty, the fact he couldn't stand on his own. He really couldn't take care of himself. How are we going to make this transition? We headed back to the hotel that evening. Arthur said to me, which I believe was inspired, and said, what if we were to ask John, his caregiver, to come with us in that transitional move? And I'm thinking, well, that would be wonderful. That would ease his Daddy's anxiety. That would help us through this. But how do you make that happen? Well, we went back and talked to Jan the next day, and he actually agreed to do that. He cleared his schedule, and when Arthur called the airlines, there was one ticket left. Those aren't things that happen by chance. Those are God moments, God opening the doors to let Him lead in your life. In January, Arthur's job duties, he got communication that his job duties were changing. We did not know, we did not understand at the time why. But what that allowed to happen was he traveled probably 3/4 time. That reduced his travel. That allowed him to be home during the rest of the year, during those times that we needed him to be there for support. God's timing. One Sabbath, it was Adventure Pathfinder Sabbath. The church was packed. We didn't get our regular seat here. We were clear back in the back. There was just a couple seats left. Raphael and Marlene Canizales came and sat beside us. At the end of church, they leaned over and asked how things were going. This was a couple weeks after Connie had passed. And I looked, and we said, things have been slow. We still don't have keys even to our mailbox to take care of the things that we need to take care of. In the course of our conversation, he said, well, where does she live? And I told him, and he says, I own property in that condo section. I've got the keys you need. That next morning, we accomplished that task. That wasn't by chance that he sat next to us that Sabbath. That was a God moment in our lives. The last moment we want to share with you this morning actually happened the day Daddy died. We got the call early in the morning, about 4:15. That afternoon, we headed over to the funeral home to take care of the arrangements. Now, you'd think I'd just been through that process, I would understand what to expect. But when it came to the questions that they were asking with regard to the death certificate, I didn't know where Grandma was born. Connie was the historian in the family. And you remember that trailer that we filled when we were up in Pendleton? Well, the day before, my cousin's schedules had finally cleared, and they were actually on their way down from the Oregon area to be with us that week. So I picked up the phone and I called Herb and Linda, and they actually were sitting alongside the road because the trailer had a flat tire. I asked my questions, they didn't have answers. Linda asked me, she said, Sharon, do you happen to have Grandpa's autobiography? And I'm going, oh, Linda, maybe somewhere, but I would not have a clue where. We said our goodbyes, said be safe, we'll see you soon. Hung up the phone, continued our discussion at the funeral home. About 5 minutes later, my phone rings. I see that it's Linda. I think maybe she called somebody. Maybe she's got an answer for me. I picked up the phone. She says, Sharon, you are never going to believe what just happened. We are sitting in the back of the trailer because it's over 100 degrees and it's the coolest place we can sit. Boxes have just shifted, and your grandpa's autobiography just fell out of that box. Now, there were hundreds, literally hundreds of boxes in the back of that trailer. That was not by chance. That was a God moment. At that moment, the four of us knew God was with us. Has it been a hard year? Probably the hardest of my life. But due to God bringing those God moments to us, we look back and all we can say is we have an awesome Father. Our prayer for you this morning is to allow yourselves to look for those God moments in your lives, because trust us, they're all around you. We have seen God care for us in the biggest of details and the smallest of details. How can we not be incredibly thankful?
Thank you, Sharon. What are those God moments you have experienced this last year? We've all had them. Our final story comes from Heather Page. If you've been here at all over the last several years, I'm sure that name sounds familiar to you, even if you don't know the Page family. We have been praying over and over again for the family as their son has dealt with some very serious health challenges over the last several years. And so it is a real joy to invite Heather to come up and to share her story and testimony of thankfulness this morning.
I am grateful for many things this year. Perhaps many of them are also on your list: a loving husband, my children, other family, a home to live in, work I enjoy, good friends. But as our family has discovered, life can change in an instant. And the things I'm thankful for now can be torn from my grasp without warning. On a September morning, just over 4 years ago, our healthy, energetic, then 5-year-old son, Derek, woke with a puffy face. Throughout the day, he complained of abdominal pain on and off. He had little appetite, and I noticed occasional troubled breathing. By evening, he was in the emergency room. Blood tests showed an astronomically high white blood count. He was transferred to Loma Linda Children's Hospital, and within a day, we had a diagnosis: T-cell acute lymphocytic leukemia. The fact that my son was healthy and energetic had just been ripped from my thankful list as he fought for his life. Our world permanently changed as we were launched on a horrible and tenuous journey. But over the last 4 years, our family and I have received some very precious gifts for which I am deeply grateful and which I would not trade for anything. On that day, we didn't comprehend the extent to which our lives would change. We were concerned with the immediate crisis of the moment, the shock of the thought, our son has cancer. In the days and weeks that followed, I spent most of my time at the hospital with Derek. Many family and friends stopped what they were doing and supported us in many ways. Laundry, cooking meals, cleaning the house, providing childcare for our daughter Kristen. This Azure Hills Church family also upheld us in prayer continually, provided meals and visits, installed new flooring in our home. We were carried along on a tidal wave of love, prayer, and support by people acting as the physical arms of God to us. For this, we are profoundly grateful. It allowed Vince and me to grapple with the deeper issues. Why did God allow this? Why Derek? What are the chances that he will overcome this disease? What if he relapses? What will be the long-term effects of his treatment? Where is God? For most of these questions, there was no immediate answer. But fortunately for the last one, the question, where is God? The answer has become very clear, and it has become a most precious gift. In Hebrews 13:5, God says, I will never leave you or forsake you. That one firm belief with abundant evidence that God was with me through everything allowed me to set aside the unanswerable questions and trust. I saw that God was with Derek, giving him what he needed, things that I could not give him. I saw that God was with our family, providing just what we needed in just the right time. God with us, God with me. It was the greatest of gifts. Maybe that's why it's called his presence. Derek's cancer went into remission, but he continued his treatment over the next 3 years. Though he had several serious complications, he always pulled through and responded well to treatment. But then, a year and a half ago, while we were at a family retreat up at Pine Springs Ranch, Derek awoke with severe pain in his neck. By evening, he was running a fever, and we feared he had meningitis. I rushed him down the mountain back to Loma Linda Hospital, where testing showed he had not meningitis, but our worst fear realized. His cancer was back. Once again, he had gone from seemingly healthy to critical in one day. This life is so uncertain. Life situations can change so suddenly. After relapse, Derek went through 3 grueling rounds of chemotherapy in a desperate attempt to get him back into remission so he could undergo stem cell transplant. We wondered many times if he would ever make it. Even after all of that, he still had residual disease going into transplant. His stem cell donor is a wonderful person somewhere in Europe that we don't know, we hope to meet someday. His transplant took place in the wee morning hours last year on September 10. Pastor Brunt was there to support us, even in the middle of the night, and I know many of you were uplifting Derek in prayer. Over the last year, Derek has spent weeks in the hospital with various complications, but just as before, we have seen clear evidence of those gifts, God's presence with us through it all. Today, a year later, the new graft cells have apparently eradicated the residual leukemia, and Derek, now 9 years old, is cancer-free once again. His new immune system is getting stronger, and he's off nearly all of his numerous medications. We are so very thankful. But I am keenly aware that it can all change. This reality has made me cognizant of other priceless gifts I have received on this journey. I have received them one by one each morning as the sun rises and I open my eyes to a new day. Today is a gift to treasure. Today I have my son. Today I watch him play the piano, and I hear him giggle as he plays with our cats. I smile as I watch Kristen and Derek hug each other and listen as they communicate in their secret code. Today, I remind him to do his chores quickly, to please live at peace with his sister, to chew with his mouth closed. Tonight, as I tuck Kristen and Derek into bed, I feel their arms around my neck and their butterfly kisses on my nose. Today, I experience love from many people in many ways. And today I witness the providence of God. Today is a gift. Maybe that's why it is called the present. This Thanksgiving, I am grateful for many things: family, friendship, love shown by many people, the prayers of many more, the gift that is today, the present. But the intense and unexpected events of the last 4 years have made me realize that many of the things I'm thankful for today may not be mine tomorrow. Even today is not guaranteed. But through it all, there is one supreme gift that has been mine and will be mine no matter what comes. I am always with you, says Jesus, even to the end of the world. So today, I am grateful for God's ultimate gift, his presence.
Thank you to Heather, Sharon, and Prakash for sharing their stories with us. How are you praising God this morning? How are you making known among the nations what he has done? I'd encourage you to think and reflect on that as we close our time this morning together, as our praise team leads us in a closing song called You Are Good.